Captain Minji Park stood in the long corridor outside the Grand Assembly Hall, her hands clasped behind her back. The walls around her glowed with soft blue light, and through the transparent sections, she could see the stars beyond. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. 3 years of learning, adapting, and trying to find their place among species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. The door ahead opened with a soft hiss. A mechanical voice spoke in perfect Korean. "Ambassador Park, the council is ready for you." Minji walked forward. The assembly hall stretched before her like a vast stadium. Seats rose in circular tiers, reaching up toward a domed ceiling that showed the galaxy itself spinning slowly overhead. 847 species held membership in the council. She had spent months learning to recognize at least the major ones. The insectoid Velcar with their clicking speech, the floating lumens who communicated through color patterns, the massive Kron who barely fit in their reinforced seats. At the center of the hall sat High Arbiter Velxoth. His species had led the council for 6,000 years. His body was covered in dark chitin, and his 4 eyes watched everything with patient calculation. Beside him sat Counselor Thrace, whose green scales caught the light as he moved his reptilian head. Minji took her place at the human delegation's seat. It was located in the outer ring where the newest members sat. Her assistant, Lieutenant Kim Sung-ho, leaned close and whispered. The summons came with no explanation. "Nobody will tell me what this is about." The High Arbiter raised one of his 4 arms. The chamber fell silent. His voice came through the translation system, emotionless and clear. "We convene this special session to address a standard administrative matter. The human species has completed its 3-year probationary membership. The time has come to fulfill the obligations that all member species share." Minji felt her chest tighten. She kept her face calm, but her mind raced. Obligations? Nobody had mentioned any special obligations during the entry negotiations. Counselor Thrace stood. His tail swished behind him as he activated a holographic display. Numbers and charts appeared in the air above the assembly floor. "All members of the Galactic Council contribute tribute," he said. "This system has maintained peace and prosperity for 40,000 years. Now humanity must do the same." The display showed a breakdown. 15% of gross domestic product, 20% of military resources, 10% of population volunteered for the labor corps. The numbers glowed red in the air. Minji raised her hand. "May I ask questions?" "Of course," Velxoth said. "We understand this is new to your species." "What does the tribute fund?" Minji asked. Thrace gestured at the display. "It maintains council operations, protection of member worlds, infrastructure across controlled space, peacekeeping forces, administrative systems, everything that keeps our civilization functioning." "Every species pays this?" Minji asked. "Every species," Velxoth confirmed, "from the moment they join until the end of time. It is the foundation of our order." Minji looked around the chamber. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat watching. None of them seemed surprised or concerned. This was normal for them, as natural as breathing. "How is the tribute collected?" she asked. "Automated systems," Thrace replied. "Once you authorize access to human financial networks and resource databases, the transfers happen quarterly. The Labor Corps volunteers are transported to assignment locations throughout the year." "And if a species cannot pay?" Minji asked quietly. The chamber grew colder somehow. Velxoth's 4 eyes fixed on her. "That has never happened. All species pay. All species benefit from the protection and services provided." "But hypothetically," Minji pressed, "what if a species refused?" Several counselors shifted in their seats. A low murmur ran through the assembly. Thrace's scales darkened slightly. Refusal would constitute a breach of membership. Such a species would face immediate sanctions, trade restrictions, travel bans, isolation from the galactic community, military protection would be withdrawn. They would stand alone against any threat. But it has never happened, Velksoth repeated, because all civilized species understand the necessity of cooperation. The tribute system is ancient. It has brought stability to countless worlds. Your species will benefit from it just as all others have. Minji nodded slowly. She made notes on her datapad. Lieutenant Kim sat very still beside her. "You have 30 days, Velksoth announced. "Provide your authorization codes and begin the first tribute payment. Welcome to full membership in the Galactic Council." The High Arbiter struck the resonance plate before him 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber. The session was over. Minji stood. Around her, other delegates were already leaving, chatting about routine business. For them, this had been a mundane administrative meeting. Just another species joining the system that had existed since before their grandparents were born. She walked back through the corridor with Kim following close behind. Neither spoke until they reached the privacy of the human embassy section. The moment the door sealed behind them, Kim let out a long breath. 15% of GDP, he said. 20% of military resources. That is not sustainable. Earth's economy would collapse. It is worse than that, Minji said quietly. She moved to the communications console and began encoding a priority message to Earth. 10% of our population. That is almost 800 million people. They call it volunteering, Kim said bitterly. But if it is mandatory, it is not volunteering. Minji typed rapidly, her fingers flying across the controls. Get me everything you can find about this tribute system, history, how it started, where the resources actually go. I want financial records, historical documents, anything available in the public databases. You think something is wrong with it, Kim said. I think 846 species accept this as normal, Minji replied. And I want to know why. Send the message to the Prime Minister's office. Highest priority. Earth needs to know what the Council is demanding. She paused, looking out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth orbited its yellow sun. Billions of humans lived their lives, unaware that their new galactic neighbors had just demanded submission, wrapped in the language of tradition. 30 days, she said softly. We have 30 days to decide who we are. The quantum communication link flickered to life in the embassy's secure room. Minji watched as 3 faces appeared on the holographic display. Prime Minister Lee Hyun-woo sat in his office in Seoul, the night sky visible through windows behind him. Admiral Jae-won Song joined from the orbital defense platform above Earth. Dr. Sarah Kwan connected from the Xenosociology Institute in Geneva. We received your report, the Prime Minister said. His face looked tired. 15% of GDP. This is not a small request. It is not a request at all, Minji replied. They present it as fact, as something we must do. Admiral Song leaned forward. Can they enforce it? If we refuse, do they have the military capability to force compliance? Not directly, Minji said, but they control access to trade routes, technology exchanges, and diplomatic relations with every other species in the galaxy. Isolation would hurt us badly. Dr. Kwan had been quiet, but now she spoke. Ambassador Park, you said you wanted historical research. My team has spent the last 6 hours searching Council archives. We found something disturbing. She shared data to the group display. Ancient records scrolled past, translated into Korean. The tribute system began 41,000 years ago. A species called the Drevkor controlled most of this region of space. They were powerful, militarily advanced. They demanded payment from weaker species for protection. Protection racket, Admiral Song muttered. Exactly, Dr. Kwan continued. But here is what happened. Over thousands of years, the system became normal. Species that joined later did not question it because everyone else already paid. The Drevcore eventually fell, but the tribute system remained. New leadership took over, but they kept collecting the payments. "Where does the money go?" the Prime Minister asked. Lieutenant Kim, sitting beside Minji, pulled up financial data he had compiled. "We tracked allocation of tribute resources. Only 12% goes to actual peacekeeping and infrastructure. The rest funds luxury stations for council leadership, private fleets, estates on resort worlds. The tribute system does not fund protection. It funds a ruling class." Silence filled the channel for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Song spoke. "So we are being asked to fund corruption." "Corruption they don't even see as corruption anymore," Dr. Kwan said. "To them, this is just how civilization works. They have forgotten it ever started as theft." Prime Minister Lee rubbed his eyes. "We have 30 days to decide. I need to understand our options clearly." Minji straightened in her chair. "Option 1 is comply. We pay the tribute and accept our place in their system. Earth becomes one more species funding the council elite." "Option 2? Lee asked. "Negotiate. Try to reduce the amount or change the terms, but Lieutenant Kim researched this. No species has ever successfully negotiated the tribute. The council views any attempt to reduce it as an insult to the entire system." "And option 3? Admiral Song asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "We refuse," Minji said simply. "We say no." The Prime Minister leaned back in his chair. "Which triggers sanctions, isolation, and possibly military threats." "Yes," Minji confirmed. "We would stand alone." "Can we survive alone?" Lee asked the Admiral. Song considered carefully before answering. "Our defense fleet is advanced by Earth standards, but small compared to major galactic powers. In a direct conflict, we would lose. However, Earth's position is defensible. Our system is far from major population centers. Any military action against us would be expensive and difficult. They would have to really want to punish us." "But trade?" Lee pressed. "We would lose access to most advanced technologies and materials," Song admitted. "It would slow our development significantly. But we would not collapse. Humans are resourceful." Dr. Kwan spoke again. "There is another factor to consider. We have been monitoring communications across the galactic network. Some species, particularly younger members, have expressed frustration with the tribute system in private channels. They never voice this publicly because they see no alternative. They believe this is just how things must be." "You think our refusal might inspire others?" Minji asked. "I think nobody has ever shown them that refusal is possible," Kwan replied. "The system persists because everyone participates. It is like a shared illusion. If one species breaks the pattern, others might question it too." Prime Minister Lee stood and walked to his window. Earth turned slowly below, blue and green and beautiful. "I cannot make this decision alone. This affects every person on our planet." "You are calling for a vote?" Minji asked. "Direct democracy on a question this important," Lee said. "Every citizen over 16 gets a voice. We will present all 3 options clearly. Comply, negotiate, or refuse. Let humanity decide together who we want to be." The vote took place over the next 72 hours. Every human colony, station, and settlement participated. The results came in steadily as polling stations closed across time zones and space habitats. Minji watched the numbers update on her display. Lieutenant Kim sat beside her, also watching in silence. Dr. Sek, Buddy Kwan, and Admiral Song had joined via link, monitoring from their locations. Comply, 8%, negotiate, 14%, refuse, 78%. The message was clear, overwhelming. Humanity had decided. Prime Minister Lee appeared on the main display. "Ambassador Park, You have your answer from Earth. The people have spoken with one voice. We will not pay tribute. Not to the Council, not to anyone. I will prepare our formal response, Minji said. Make it clear but respectful, Lee instructed. We are not trying to insult them. We are simply standing on principle. We don't submit to extortion, no matter how old the tradition. Understood, Minji said. Admiral Song spoke up. I am reconfiguring our defense positions. If they respond with force, we will be ready. Let us hope it does not come to that, Lee said. But hope is not a strategy. Admiral, do what you must. After the others disconnected, Minji sat alone in the embassy office. Through the window, she could see other delegates moving through Concordia Station, representatives from hundreds of worlds, all going about their business, all paying their tribute without question. She pulled up a blank document and began writing humanity's response. The words came slowly at first, then faster. She wrote about dignity and freedom, about the difference between cooperation and submission, about fair exchange versus forced extraction. When she finished, the statement was clear and firm. It explained humanity's position without apology or aggression. It offered an alternative, a vision of genuine cooperation based on mutual benefit, rather than ancient coercion. And at its heart, one simple word that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. No. The Grand Assembly Hall filled with delegates once more. 28 days had passed since the tribute demand. Minji stood at the entrance, watching the representatives take their seats. She wore her formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with the Earth insignia on her shoulder. Lieutenant Kim walked beside her, carrying the data pad with their prepared statement. Are you ready? He asked quietly. Yes, Minji said. She felt calm. The decision was made. Now came only the delivery. They walked to the human delegation's seat. Around them, delegates chatted casually. This was routine business for them, another species joining the tribute system, as countless others had done before. Some delegates had already moved on to discussing other topics, barely paying attention. High Arbiter Velksoth entered the chamber. His chiton gleamed under the lights as he took his position at the center platform. Counselor Thrace followed, his scales shifting from green to a more formal dark blue. The chamber settled into silence. We reconvene to receive humanity's acceptance of tribute obligations, Velksoth announced. His 4 eyes swept across the assembly. Ambassador Park, please approach. Minji stood. She walked down the steps to the central floor, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. 846 species watched her, some with interest, most with polite indifference. She reached the speaker's podium and placed her data pad on its surface. The translation systems activated automatically, ready to carry her words to hundreds of different languages simultaneously. High Arbiter, honored counselors, Minji began. Humanity has carefully reviewed the Council's tribute requirements. We studied the history of this system, its purpose, and its implementation across galactic civilization. Velksoth nodded slightly. And you have prepared the necessary authorization codes? We have prepared our response, Minji said. Over the past 28 days, humanity consulted extensively. Every human colony, station, and settlement participated in this decision. We discussed the implications, the consequences, and our principles. She paused. The chamber was very quiet now. Something in her tone had shifted the atmosphere. We understand this system has existed for 40,000 years, Minji continued. We understand that every member species participates. We understand the Council views this as essential to galactic order. Then you understand cooperation is not optional, Thrace interjected. It is the price of civilization. Minji met his eyes. We understand you believe that. However, humanity has reached a different conclusion. Velksoth leaned forward slightly. Ambassador Park, please provide your authorization code so we may proceed. Minji took a breath. No. The word hung in the air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then confusion rippled through the chamber. Delegates leaned toward their translation devices. Many species had no direct translation for the concept she had just expressed. Their languages lacked a word for refusing authority. I do not understand, Velksoth said. The translation system appears to be malfunctioning. The translation is correct, Minji said clearly. Our answer is no. We will not pay tribute. The chamber erupted. Delegates stood, shouting questions. Some cycled through colors in agitation. Others made sounds that the translation system could not process. Velksoth struck the resonance plate repeatedly, trying to restore order. Finally, the noise subsided. Velksoth's voice came cold and hard. You refuse? You understand what you are saying? Completely, Minji replied. We do not pay tribute. Not to you, not to anyone. This is not negotiable. Thrace stood, his tail lashing behind him. This is unprecedented, outrageous. You are a new species. You have no right to refuse the foundations of our civilization. We have every right, Minji said. We are a sovereign species. We joined your council as equals, not as subjects. Equals who must fulfill their obligations, Velksoth countered. We will gladly fulfill obligations that are fair and just, Minji said. She activated her datapad, and a new display appeared in the air above the assembly. We propose an alternative. Humanity will contribute resources for genuine council operations, peacekeeping, infrastructure, diplomacy. But we will pay only our fair share, based on transparent accounting and democratic oversight. She highlighted specific numbers. Currently, only 12% of tribute resources fund actual council services. The rest goes to private estates, luxury stations, and personal fleets for council leadership. We will pay for services rendered. We will not fund corruption. The chamber fell silent. Minji had said what everyone knew but never acknowledged. You dare call our system corrupt? Thrace hissed. I call your system what it is, Minji replied. 40,000 years ago, a powerful species demanded payment from weaker ones. They called it protection. Over time, everyone forgot it began as extortion. You have inherited a system of theft and renamed it tradition. Remove her, Thrace demanded. This insult cannot stand. But Velksoth raised a hand. His 4 eyes studied Minji with new intensity. You truly believe you can stand alone against the entire galactic community? We hope it does not come to that, Minji said. We hope other species will see the value in cooperation based on choice, not coercion. But if necessary, yes, we will stand alone. Humans do not submit to extortion, no matter how many thousands of years it has existed. Then you choose sanctions, Velksoth said. Isolation. No trade, no technology exchange, no diplomatic relations. You will be cut off from galactic civilization. If that is the price of dignity, we will pay it, Minji said. You speak of dignity, Thrace said. But you will regret this arrogance. Military protection will be withdrawn. Any threat that comes to your system, you will face alone. We accept that, Minji said. We would rather face threats as free people than live safely as subjects. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from hundreds of worlds. Our offer remains open. Fair contribution for actual services, with transparent accounting and democratic oversight. Any species is welcome to join us in creating a better system. This session is concluded, Velksoth announced. He struck the resonance plate with force. Sanctions against humanity begin immediately. Trade is forbidden. Travel is restricted. They have chosen isolation. Let them live with it. Minji bowed slightly, a gesture of respect despite everything. Then she turned and walked back up the steps to the human delegation's seat. The chamber remained silent as she moved. Some delegates watched with shock, others with anger. A few, mostly younger representatives, watched with something that might have been wonder. Lieutenant Kim met her at their seat. "That could have gone better," he whispered. "That went exactly as expected," Minji replied quietly. "Now we see what comes next." As they left the chamber, Minji noticed one delegate following at a distance. A young representative from the Velo species, aquatic beings who usually stayed quiet in council proceedings. The delegate caught Minji's eye and nodded once, very slightly, before disappearing into the crowd. It was a small thing, but it was something. The word had been spoken. Now, the galaxy would have to decide what it meant. The sanctions came swiftly. Within 2 days, Council enforcement ships blockaded major trade routes near human space. Technology transfers stopped. Diplomatic channels closed. Human vessels found themselves denied docking rights at stations across the galaxy. Minji watched reports flowing in from Earth. The markets had trembled initially, uncertain about isolation, but Prime Minister Lee addressed the population calmly, reminding them of their choice. The 78% who voted to refuse had known this might happen. Now came the time to stand behind that decision. Admiral Song reorganized the defense fleet, pulling ships back to guard the Sol system and human colonies. His face appeared on Minji's communication screen, projected from his command ship. "We are as ready as we can be," he reported. "If they come with military force, we will make them regret it. But I hope it does not come to that." "So do I," Minji said. "How are the colonies holding up?" "That is the interesting part," Song said. "The Council sent messages to all human settlements outside Sol system. They offered amnesty. Any colony that denounces Earth's decision and agrees to pay tribute independently can rejoin the galactic community." Minji felt her chest tighten. "And every single colony refused," Song said with a slight smile. "Mars, Titan, New Sol on Proxima Centauri, even the small mining outposts, they all sent the same message. Humanity stands together." That news spread quickly through the embassy. Lieutenant Kim actually smiled for the first time in days, but Minji knew the real test was just beginning. 3 weeks after the sanctions began, something unexpected happened. Minji was reviewing supply reports when her office door chimed. Lieutenant Kim checked the security feed, and his eyes widened. "It is Ambassador Kira from Velos," he said. "She is alone and requesting private meeting." Minji remembered the young aquatic delegate who had nodded to her in the council chamber. "Let her in." Kira entered, her environmental suit allowing her to move through the air-based environment. Her large eyes, adapted for deep ocean worlds, studied Minji carefully. When she spoke, her voice came through the suit's translator. "What you did was foolish," Kira said. "Perhaps," Minji replied, "but necessary." "Necessary," Kira repeated. She moved closer, lowering her voice even though they were alone. "My species has paid tribute for 8,000 years. We have questioned it for 6,000 of those years." Minji sat forward. "Then why pay?" "Because we never imagined refusing was possible," Kira said simply. "We thought this was just how civilization worked. Everyone pays, so we pay. To refuse would be to stand alone against everything." "And now?" Minji asked. "Now I have seen someone refuse," Kira said. "I have seen what your people did. You stood in that chamber and said no to the most powerful institution in the galaxy, and you are still standing." "We are isolated," Minji pointed out. "Sanctions are hurting us." "But you are not destroyed," Kira countered. "That is what matters. The Council told us that refusal meant destruction. They said no species could survive outside their system. But you are proving them wrong." Kira pulled out a small data device. I came to tell you something. There are others like me. Young delegates, mostly. We have been communicating through secure channels. Your refusal has started conversations that were never possible before. What kind of conversations? Minji asked. Questions about where tribute really goes, about why we accept this system, about whether there might be another way. Kira paused. There have been small protests on 4 worlds. They were quickly shut down by local authorities. But they happened. That is new. Minji took the data device. You are taking a risk coming here. Yes, Kira agreed. But someone had to tell you. You are not alone. Even if you feel isolated, your action has rippled across the galaxy. Ideas are spreading. After Kira left, Minji shared the information with Earth's leadership. The data device contained communication logs, showing discussions among dozens of younger delegates. Most were afraid to act openly, but they were talking. Questioning. Wondering. More changes came. A merchant coalition, frustrated by trade disruptions, announced they would continue commerce with humanity regardless of council sanctions. They argued that business should not be held hostage to politics. The council threatened penalties, but the merchants were powerful in their own right. Dr. Kwan began appearing on independent galactic news networks. Not the official council channels, but smaller outlets that served individual systems. She spoke clearly and simply about human principles. We are not trying to destroy your system, she said in one interview. We are simply saying that cooperation should be chosen, not forced. That dignity matters. That freedom is not a luxury, but a right. Her message was translated into hundreds of languages. On some worlds, authorities blocked the broadcasts. On others, they spread rapidly. Young people, especially, seemed to respond. They had grown up accepting the tribute system because their parents accepted it. Now someone was offering an alternative vision. The council elite grew increasingly agitated. Velksoth called emergency sessions. Thrace demanded stronger enforcement of sanctions. But cracks were appearing in their control. Human traders, working outside official channels, established direct relationships with merchants on independent stations. They offered fair prices and transparent deals. Word spread that humans could be trusted, that their way of doing business was honest and direct. This infuriated the council leadership. They had counted on isolation breaking human resolve. Instead, humanity was building new networks that bypassed council control entirely. 4 months after the refusal, something more significant happened. The delegate from the Saroth species, a civilization of modest size and limited influence, stood during a routine council session and did something unprecedented. He asked a question. High Arbiter, the Saroth delegate said, I would like to review the financial accounting for last year's tribute collection, specifically where the resources were allocated. The chamber fell silent. Delegates did not ask such questions. It was not done. That information is available in standard reports, Thrace replied stiffly. I have read the standard reports, the Saroth delegate said. They are vague. I would like detailed accounting, item by item. This is inappropriate, Velksoth said. We are not here to question the foundations of our system. Then what are we here for? The Saroth delegate asked. If we cannot ask questions, what is the purpose of this council? Other delegates began murmuring, some in agreement, others in shock. The Saroth delegate was not a major power. He had no military might behind him. But he had asked a question that others had wondered about in silence for generations. Minji watched from the human embassy via remote feed. Lieutenant Kim sat beside her, both of them realizing they were witnessing something historic. It is starting, Kim said quietly. Yes, Minji agreed. The question has been asked. Now others will ask it too. Within days, 17 more species formally requested detailed financial accounting. The council elite scrambled to maintain control. But the dam had cracked. Questions were being asked, doubts were being voiced. The system that had persisted for 40,000 years through unquestioned acceptance was suddenly facing scrutiny. And across the galaxy, beings from hundreds of worlds were discovering something humans had known all along. The word "no" had power, and once spoken, it could never be unheard. 6 months after humanity's refusal, the Grand Assembly Hall filled for an emergency session. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Delegates did not chat casually. They sat in tense clusters, whispering urgently. The chamber felt like a storm about to break. Minji entered with Lieutenant Kim. They walked to the human delegation's seat, now no longer isolated. Ambassador Kira sat nearby, along with delegates from 16 other species who had formally requested accounting reform. They nodded to Minji as she passed. High Arbiter Velixoth took his position, but his usual confidence seemed diminished. Counselor Thrace stood beside him, his scales shifting colors rapidly, a sign of agitation in his species. "This session will address the recent calls for administrative review," Velixoth announced. "Some delegates have questioned long-standing procedures. This threatens the stability of our entire civilization." "Or it strengthens it," a voice called out. The Saroth delegate stood. "Transparency does not threaten legitimate systems. It only threatens corrupt ones." Gasps filled the chamber. To speak so directly to the High Arbiter was unthinkable, yet it had been thought. It had been said. Thrace pointed at the Saroth delegate. "You have been influenced by human propaganda. They seek to destroy our unity." "We seek to understand where our resources go," another delegate said, standing. This one from the Kelvin species, a civilization with significant economic power. "Our tribute represents enormous wealth. We have the right to know how it is used." More delegates stood. 17 became 20, then 30, then 50. A cascade of voices, all asking the same basic question. "Show us the accounting." Velixoth struck the resonance plate. "Order. This council operates on trust built over millennia. These questions show disrespect to that trust." "Trust requires transparency," Kira said, rising from her seat. Her voice carried across the chamber through her environmental suit speakers. "We have trusted for 8,000 years. Now we ask for verification. If the system is just, verification will prove it. If the system fears verification, perhaps our trust was misplaced." The Merchant Coalition's representative stood. He was a massive being from the Kron species, barely fitting in his reinforced seat. "The trade sanctions against humanity have cost our businesses billions. For what? Because they asked to see the same accounting we are now requesting? We support their position. We will not enforce these sanctions any longer." "You have no authority to make that decision," Thrace said, his voice rising. "We have every authority," the Kron replied. "You do not control commerce. You regulate it. But if your regulations serve only to protect your privileges, we will ignore them." The chamber descended into chaos. Delegates argued, some supporting the council elite, others demanding reform. Velixoth struck the resonance plate again and again, but order did not return. Admiral Song's face appeared on Minji's private communication device. "Our sensors are picking up something interesting. 3 council enforcement fleets have been ordered to different positions, but their crews are refusing some orders. There is confusion in their command structure." Minji nodded. The military forces had been the Council's ultimate enforcement mechanism, but they were made up of beings from the same species, now questioning the system. Why would they fight to defend a system they no longer believed in? Thrace called for a vote to expel the 17 species who had formally requested reform, but when the vote was called, less than half the chamber supported it. The motion failed. Velixoth realized he was losing control. He made one final attempt to reassert authority. We will implement military enforcement of council decisions. Any species refusing tribute will face consequences. What consequences? Admiral Song's voice came through the chamber's communication system. Minji had not authorized this, but she did not stop it. The Admiral had clearly decided to speak directly. Will you attack commercial vessels? Will you bombard civilian populations? Your enforcement fleets are crewed by beings who pay the same tribute you demand. How many of them will follow orders to attack others for asking questions? A new voice entered the chamber. A fleet commander from the Council's own peacekeeping forces appeared on the main display. His species was one Minji did not immediately recognize, but his uniform showed high rank. High Arbiter, my commanders are asking questions I cannot answer, he said. They want to know why they should enforce a system that takes from their families. They want to know where tribute resources really go. I have reviewed the classified accounting records. What I found disturbs me greatly. Those records are sealed, Velksoth said. They were sealed, the commander replied. But when the foundation of your authority is questioned, security classifications lose meaning. I have shared these records with my command staff. They are now being distributed across the fleet. Thrace lunged toward a control panel, trying to cut the transmission, but other delegates blocked him. The chamber had shifted. The old guard was being swept away by the tide of questions they could no longer suppress. Kira approached the center floor. I propose we dissolve the current council structure and establish a new system, one based on voluntary cooperation, transparent accounting, and democratic oversight. One where species contribute according to ability, with clear records of how resources are used. This is madness, Velksoth said. You will destroy 40,000 years of civilization. We will transform it, Kira replied. Civilization built on coercion is no civilization at all. Humanity showed us that. They stood alone when they had to, spoke truth when it was dangerous, and offered an alternative when everyone said none existed. The vote was called. Would the chamber support dissolving the current tribute system and establishing a new framework based on the principles humanity had proposed? 698 species voted in favor. 149 abstained, none opposed. The old system fell not with violence, but with mathematics, a simple majority choosing something better. Minji stood and walked to the center floor. The chamber quieted as she took the podium. Humanity thanks this council for your courage. You have done something harder than we did. We refused a system we had only known for 3 years. You questioned and changed a system you had known for millennia. That takes profound strength. She activated her datapad. We propose the following framework. Every species contributes based on their economic capacity, with a maximum ceiling so no single species is overburdened. All expenditures are public record, reviewed quarterly. A rotating oversight committee, democratically elected, audits all financial transactions. Military forces operate under clear defensive mandates, not as tools of economic enforcement. And any species may propose amendments to the system, which are decided by majority vote. Velksoth and Thrace were escorted from the chamber. They had not committed crimes under the old system, but their authority had evaporated. New leadership would be chosen, temporarily, until proper elections could be organized. The transition took months. Not all species supported the changes enthusiastically. Some of the old elite resisted, but without the weight of normalized authority, their resistance meant little. They were individuals arguing against a galaxy that had found its voice. The new Galactic Charter was signed in the same assembly hall where Minji had spoken one word that changed everything. Representatives from 847 species placed their marks on the document. Earth's signature was not first, though it could have been. Minji insisted they sign in alphabetical order as equals. A year after the refusal, Minji stood in the embassy watching ships from dozens of species dock at Concordia Station. Human traders, Velos scholars, Saroth engineers, Kron merchants. They moved freely now, cooperating because they chose to, not because they were forced to. Lieutenant Kim joined her at the window. "We did something remarkable," he said. "We spoke a word," Minji replied. "A simple word, but it was enough." "No," Kim said softly. "Yes," Minji smiled. "That word. It seems small, but it contains everything. The right to choose, the dignity of free decision, the power to say this system does not serve us, so we will change it." She thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had voted to stand on principle even when it meant standing alone, about the other species who had found their own courage after seeing humanity's example, about how quickly oppression could fall once people realized they did not have to accept it. "Our strength was never military power," Minji said. "Never technology or resources. It was the simple willingness to say no to injustice, and then to offer something better." Below them, in the station's common areas, beings from hundreds of worlds worked together. They argued, negotiated, compromised, and collaborated. It was messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating. Democracy always was, but it was theirs. Chosen, not imposed. The tribute system had lasted 40,000 years. It fell in 6 months once someone dared to question it. And in its place, something new was growing. Something built not on the foundation of what had always been, but on the foundation of what could be. All because one species, standing in a chamber full of doubters, had spoken a single word with conviction. No.